people in high official positions in Washington, D.C. had similar views. I have brought letters from President Doe for hand delivery to various personalities, including Massachusetts Senator Edward Kennedy. The senator was kind to send me word that while he held me in high esteem, he had nothing but contempt and disdain for President Doe. He therefore could not bring himself to meet the delegation. We therefore had to be satisfied with a low-key meeting with the senator states. The meetings on Capitol Hill had been preceded by full-scale talks at the Department of State and at the White House. At the State Department, in a large conference room, the two sides, numbering in all about 20 on each side, with grim faces glared at each other. At such diplomatic negotiations, only one person on either side speaks for his side. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Herman Cohen, spoke for the United States government, and I spoke for the Liberian delegation. Speaking first, I described the growing horrors of the war in Liberia. There would be no quick or easy victory, the continued pursuit of which would leave all parties as losers and Liberians in ruins. It was for these reasons that the delegation had come to Washington, seeking the help of the one country with which we had long historical and blood ties, and which alone would help us in our hour of maximum danger. The hushed room had grown solemn. Then Secretary Cohen spoke. Ambassador Tubman, your words sound like music to our ears. It seems hardly possible that you have come bearing such sentiments from the Liberia that we know in an official capacity. The United States treasures its long historic ties with Liberia, and the horrors now happening there greatly saddens us. Yet, it would be a mistake and highly controversial were we now to intervene in your conflict and attempt to stop the war. During the last elections in Liberia, when President Samuel Doe was declared the winner, the United States accepted the results, which showed the president winning up 99% of the vote, as is common in most African elections, but just over 50%. However, many Liberians felt that President Doe had in fact lost the election, and that the United States had taken its stance of support simply to keep an unpopular dictator in power for the United States' own reasons. Now, the people of Liberia were on a roll in massive numbers. They are taking up arms, spilled blood, and many people have already been killed in order to rid themselves of Samuel Doe. If, in such circumstances, the United States went in and tried to stop the war, many Liberians would say, there they go again, frustrating the Liberian people, saving Doe when the Liberian people wanted him out completely. No, Ambassador Tubman, the United States government does not wish to be accused of being on the wrong side and condemned again. Therefore, we will not intervene to stop the war. However, if you will go back to Monrovia and tell President Doe that he should, as promptly as possible, call early elections, then, if he was to do this, the United States government would be ready to go to the Congress and request funding to intervene in a move that would not only serve humanitarian purposes, but that would also be in the best interest of Liberia and the United States. Many more words were spoken at the State Department, at the White House, in congressional offices, but they all came to this precise point, and then they stopped. Yet we continue to push. Can we meet President Bush? How about the Vice President? Couldn't the Secretary of State himself, or just some senior official at the White House find a minute or two for us? We pleaded. Look, we were finally sternly told. The Cold War is ending. The top officials of the United States government are preoccupied wrapping up crucial loose ends from World War II. They are very busy. The attention already given to your delegation is all that you will get. By way of a small concession, we were invited to meet with Mr. Miller, one of the President's advisors on Africa, at the White House. That's how come we went to the White House at all. If things became heated during the delegation's visit, it was not in our meetings with the Americans, but in the discussions and meetings among members of the delegation. Our meetings took place in the suite, not of the delegation's chair, myself, who only had a single room, but in the most spacious quarters of delegation member Honorable William Glade, a relative of President Doe, and a member of the House of Representatives from Grand County. Some months ago, when I resigned my membership from the NDPL, Mr. Jackson Doe went on the radio alleging that I had been given $250,000 to undertake this mission to Washington and that I had never accounted for the money. That was a malicious lie. Each member of the delegation was given a per diem, with the officials of government being given more than non-officials. We found the authorization documents since Jackson Doe's accusations were made, and they showed that I received just over $2,000 per diem for the whole trip, considering that I was taking time off from my law practice, that I was not receiving any salary from the government because I wasn't an official of the government. All the time that I was in Washington, I made a huge financial sacrifice to go on this mission. Anyhow, during the meeting with the delegation while in Washington, daily phone contact would be made with the President in Monrovia. But the President never spoke to the chairman. He only spoke to William Glade or another Crown-speaking member of the delegation, and they always spoke in Crown. Some people found this to be objectionable. I did not. It would be a good day, a fine day, when there are one or more Liberian languages or dialects, as we say in Liberia, that all Liberians would be able to speak. We have spoken in English, and the telephone contact with Monrovia would have exposed the sensitive conversations with the President to eavesdroppers. Meanwhile, the exchanges within the delegation grew very heated. Some members suspected that moves were afoot to set up an interim government in Liberia and that I was aiming at or being considered by the U.S. government to head that interim government. One member of the delegation, Mr. Sidney Thompson, even voiced the position that any move towards installing an interim government would have fatal consequences. The direction of that threat towards me personally was unmistakable, but I refused to be intimidated. The disagreements in the delegation continued even after our return to Monrovia, and so we could not reach a conclusion to inform President Doe that the United States wanted him to call early election. The rather meaningless conclusion we were able to reach in the report, I recall, was that a government of national unity involving members from all the counties of the country should be quickly formed. Then we went to the executive mansion to present our report to the President. It was a tense meeting. Only 9 of us were present. The 10th member, Emmanuel Buya, for some reason had remained in America, though he returned to the country later. All 9 of us sat in front of the President, who was behind his desk in the presidential office. With a grim face, he pushed aside the report and addressed me directly. Tubman, you were legal advisor to the National Constitution Commission that wrote our new Constitution, not so. Tell me, where in that Constitution does it say that the President can call early elections? Our Constitution is just like the American Constitution. Can they call early elections under their Constitution? They cannot. Therefore, why would you sit down and let them make fools of us by saying that we must call early elections? It was not a rhetorical question. He had paused for my response to the question I had not expected. Then I heard myself say, no, Mr. President, nowhere in the Constitution is the President empowered to call early elections. But you will recall that a year or so ago, when you came to the conclusion that the entire Supreme Court bench was corrupt, you called for their resignation. When they responded by indeed resigning, you were able to correct the problems on the court without, in my view, violating the Constitution. In the same way, sir, if you would follow this precedent that you yourself said, this crisis which the country is facing could be ended and the Constitution would not be violated. The tension in the room became palpable. You could calculate life. You could hear a pin drop. The 1 minute that passed seemed like eternity. When the silence was finally broken, it was Slade Thompson, the man who had threatened in Washington that the appointment of an interim president would have fatal consequences. The same man who, a few months later, accompanied President Doe on his final fatal trip to the free port of Monrovia. It was he who now spoke. No, Mr. President, you cannot resign. The Liberian people expect you to remain in your post to defend the country. You must save them from this horrible war that Charles Taylor is currently unleashing on them. That was the end of the meeting.